So I ended up taking this mostly apart because I had to get this clutch out. There's supposed to be 2 screws here, but when the machine jammed, it broke this free and sheared the 2 screws off. So I have to replace those. See, this gear comes off, and they go in the back there and hold that together. This is the dog clutch. So normally there's a cam follower that holds this pin in, and that's held in, and this turns freely. When that's released, then it grips and turns and drives the machine. So I gotta get 2 screws to go in there. This gear is the forward and reverse, so it slides back and forth to change the cycle operation for addition and subtraction. And that was on this shaft, which was back here. And see, this is the cam follower here that gets released when you push the addition or subtraction button. That was stuck on something. There we go. And this is the part that was stuck. See this little tooth here, every cycle, that turns this. And this is the multiplication cycle counter. So down here, you see this is attached to this. And this goes up and down for how many multiplication cycles you want. When it's right here, you get 1 cycle. It only goes in one place and then resets. When it's up, say here, you get a lot more cycles, and then it resets. So this will keep pulling this back. It can't be all the way on. It's all the way down, it jams. It has to be at least up here. See, then it resets when it pulls back. Turn it all the way up, you'll get 9. It'll go all the way up into this groove. You can see that there. Not sure if you can see the little. This is a bunch of grooves going up it. So the further this goes up, the higher the groove this pin falls into when this pulls back. So the machine keeps running until this hits that and resets it. Like that. Woo. This is the multiplication unit, and this is the lever, the one that I'm pulling on, that attaches to that rod down there to lift this up. See, if I push a 1, so this would be all the way forward, right? Yeah. That would be held in place normally by this rod here. This was spring loaded. So watch this shaft when I push like a 2. See, it moves back a little bit. When I push a 9, it moves all the way back. So that's what raises this up and down for how many multiplication cycles you want. Another issue. Not sure how well you're going to be able to see this. The camera won't fit anywhere. These guys, if I try and turn the machine through a cycle, it locks up here. That's because these are malpositioned a little bit, so that these locking things can't go in to lock these in place. These go in as soon as you start the cycle. So these try to pull in to lock these sliders so that they can't change the number while it's in mid-cycle. But because these are malpositioned slightly, you have to lift it up a little bit, then they'll fall in and you can complete the cycle. So those are held in place by these little stops back here. So you can see that there's a little stop that hits against this bar. So I think if I bend that just a little tiny bit, I might give it that little bit of extra headroom, and then that can fall into place properly and not jam every time. So, I have to fix that. I have to get screws for this, and we can start putting all this back together. Here, I got my clutch fixed up here. 2 new screws in it, holding it together. So I'm not sure if I explained what exactly happened with this, but this piece was right in here, behind these 2 cam followers down here. And this tooth right here, each machine cycle flips this one position like that. And I'm not sure whether it got turned backwards somehow or what, but I guess either this was stuck or something, and this tooth wasn't able to turn this gear, and that's what broke the back piece off the clutch here, broke these 2 screws. The screws seem to be the only thing that broke. Everything else seems okay. This clutch still works. I'll turn it the right way. See, it's free, and then when the cam follower releases, it grabs on and turns. Also, I stole this handle off my the Marchant XL so that I can turn it through the cycle. So I'm going to start putting this back together. I want to get the side back on first and get everything timed up. Because if you remember from the Marchant XL, there's a shaft that goes in here that has to be timed, and also the carriage has to be positioned appropriately in relation to this finger, because the carriage drives this back and forth. So I want to get the side back on. And putting the side back on involves timing the gear that goes in here, because that's fixed on the side. Once the side is on, you can't change the timing on that. So we're going to get that worked back on first, and then maybe see about the carriage, and then put the keyboard back in. And once I get the keyboard back in, then the last thing would be put the motor back on the back, because the keyboard lever is here. This thing reaches all the way under and grabs on back in the back here, so it's going to be a lot easier to hook those back on without the motor in the way. So, I think that's about all I have to say for now. We're back to putting this back together. Also, I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but like right there, that seems to be a witness mark where the incrementing tooth down here was scraping on this drum. So it seems like this has started to swell a little bit, like we had in the Marchant XL. So there's also a mark on there, and a mark there, and there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a file and just file these spots down a little bit, so hopefully they don't rub on that tooth anymore. Actually belongs back there, but yeah. So it's definitely not swelled as much as the one in the Marchant XL had, but definitely seems to be swelling a little bit. These all seem to still be free though, so that's good. Okay, so you can see I've started to put my puzzle back together. I've got the side back on. I'm still using the crank I stole from my Marchant XL just to hand crank it. So you won't do anything right now because you have to push a button down to unlock it. Take a look at the back here. See, this is that dog clutch that we put back in. 2 new screws on it. And this is what the motor drives. So that's turning all the time. And then when you push a button, it releases that dog down there. See if I can do this. You can see that, I'm not sure. And then this will start to drive, of course. If I turn it the right way. See, it turns. Which way does it turn? It only goes one way. Let's go that way. I know having this There we go. This fell over. Okay. This is the forward and reverse. So that way is subtraction, which turns the mechanism backwards. This way, let's slide it over here. Come on. There we go. That way is addition, so it goes forward. So it was in the reverse position while I was trying to turn it forward, which is not a good idea. Anyway, this spins freely until you push a button, at which point the clutch releases, and then oops, the machine, come on, goes to operation. At least it should. I'm not sure what it's stuck on. There we go. Maybe my carriage wasn't locked in properly. See, it does operate. This is going to be for subtraction. When you push the subtraction button, this is connected to a slider, which is connected to a like a C that rides on here. So when this slides up, it pushes this back and forth for forward and reverse. By the way, I decided to replace this wire. It's not in the best shape. This just unscrews off the bottom there, and then you can take two little screws out, take the plug apart. So I'm going to change that wire then. Here on the front, can talk about some of the timing that is involved in this machine. So this button, can't see that. This button right here is the carriage release. You push that in, and you can slide the carriage. See, it locks normally. I wonder if that's bent a little bit. I don't know. Anyway, when you push down addition, maybe. What's going on here? That's right. That's right. Push down addition. Should be able to cycle this. Why can't I? That's fine. Carriage wasn't right. It has to be all the way over. I think these are sticking a little or something. It locks when you release it. Problem is, if this carriage is all the way over like that, these little pins here hit on here. And I don't think I can do anything about that, because when it's against this side, it's fine. When it's over here, it sticks. I'm not quite sure why I have a bunch of 2s in it either. Does it automatically add 2 in the other one? If I have it over here, does it automatically add 2? Yes. So is that from the segments? I don't see that. Let's see, what's adding in here? It appears that the little tabs here are adding when they're not supposed to. So I have to get that figured out. But, anyway, there's 2 types of timing on this machine. There is, well, I mean 2 that you have to worry about when you take the side off. There is the position of this little pin on this shaft in relation to the rest of the timing of the machine, and there's the position of this pointer in relation to the carriage. So if the carriage is off relative to this, either this won't turn these wheels when your carriage is locked in, or it'll completely jam because this will be hitting against the carriage drum in the back. So you have to make sure that this is locked and this little tab is lined up with the gears here when the carriage is in its locked position. This little tab also has to be up here driving the gear at the right time too. What that tab does is every cycle that increments whatever gear is below one position forward or backward, and that's how the counter works. So if this is out of time, then it'll jam with the 10's carry. So you have to make sure that this, I'm not sure if you can even see that, it's pointing almost straight down. It's a little bit toward the front, but it's almost straight down. And the timing on that is set by meshing this gear on the end of the shaft with the other gear at the appropriate time. So you kind of have to figure out where it's supposed to be, line the gears up, and then put the side on. So it's a little bit difficult to get it right, but it seems to be working okay. I also referenced the same position on the Marchant XL, which has the same setup, to kind of get an idea of where it should be. And it seems to be working in all positions, as far as I can tell. The carriage incrementing when it's not supposed to. That could be a problem with this. This got bent a little bit, maybe. This could move over one more position. I'm going to have to look deeper into that. But right now, what I've been doing is preparing to put the keyboard back on. I took all the keys off of here before. I thought that this plate would come off the top. It doesn't. The multiplier is bolted onto the bottom of this plate as a whole unit, so you can't take this top plate off without taking the whole thing apart. So that was basically a waste of time to take these keys off, but didn't know that then. As far as the keyboard goes, started cleaning up the call these digit columns, and how these work is you can see that each one is stepped a little bit longer than the next, and this back here attaches to a rod that goes up to move these things up and down. So the higher the key you push down, actually this is not quite right either, it should be like that. There we go, now it's right. So if I push a 1 down, see that only moves a little tiny bit. If I push a 9 down, it moves a whole lot more. And so on. So I have to hold this like this because normally it's going to be spring loaded, but if I let it go out here it drops because the spring is attached to these. See, they snap back. So, started cleaning these up. You can tell what a difference it makes. This is one I haven't cleaned yet. And as far as putting these in, you can just slide this back. Maybe I have to do it this way. I might have to take this bar back off the front actually. So as far as installing these, make sure you get oil on all the wearing surfaces. I'm going to just put some here. So you want to slide this in kind of like a little angle like that, because you can see all the way back there there's a pin that hole has to hook on. Also you want to lift this up and probably push this back, because so see that this hook back here has to go behind this bar. This is the clearing bar, so this pulls back to clear the column. So the little hook on the end of here has to go behind that. Then you can kind of move this over and then try and get the hole back there on the pin. There, now it went on. You can see I know it's on because one thing I can see that it's on. Another thing, I can see that this is being held up now. If this had fallen back down, then I know that I had missed the pin back there, because the pin is all that this rests on. If I push down on this, you can't see that. If I push down on this, see, it changes my digits. So I'm going to go ahead and install the rest of these, and then I can put the bar back on here and make sure that my numbers still work properly. Alright, starting to look at the calculator again. I got these back in. I did have to do a little bit of alignment on, I think, this one, and this one. And if you remember before how I showed you the mechanism, like the scissor type thing in the bottom here, that when you push the key down, it pushes down on the little scissor thing. Well, that can get out of alignment, and if that gets bent a little bit, then if you push like a 1 here, it might actually pull it up to say like a 4. And if that happens, you have to realign that. And the only way to do that is by bending the mechanism either open more or closed more, so that, like, if you push a 4 and you end up with a 2, then you have to bend it so that it gives more movement, or if you push a 1 and end up with a 3, then you have to bend it so it gives less movement. To bend it so that it gives more movement, what I do is, on the back of the machine here, you see what I'm pushing on? That's the stop for the sliding segments. See it coming up the front? So that rests on that. So if you put something in there, like this metal bar, for example, you can push it down in there and pry with that, and then on the bottom under here, I can show this. Which column is that? That's this one. See it sticking down at the bottom there? See it sticking out the bottom right about there. See it right next to my finger all the way in the back there? That's the bottom of the scissor switch. And the scissor mechanism that's being held down. Actually, see if you can see it come down. See it there? So you want to hold it down in the back with your pry mechanism. You can probably use a screwdriver or whatever. And then get in here and then pry it up. And that way it will give more movement when you So if you need more movement, you want to hold this back somehow and then pry up. If you need less movement, you can like pry down on it from the front when it's up, or just hold it like this and then just pull it forward a little bit, and it should bend into shape. So if I go through here, if I hit all 1s, oh, this is stuck. Why is that stuck? It shouldn't be stuck. Hopefully I didn't mess it up now. If I put in all 1s, you can see they're just about level. Close enough. I'll push this down so I can add. And I get all 1s added in. If I push down all 6s, and they're just about level. That was an oopsie. I'll explain that later. And I get all 6s. If I push down all 9s, get all 9s, and all 9s in my accumulator. So that should be sufficient for that. I think I'm going to adjust the timing of this a little bit. If you have the carriage over to the one end of its detent, then it jams. You have to push it back this way, all the way, in order for the machine to work at all. That should not be the case. So I'm going to adjust that one tooth this way so that the carriage should be in the right position right in the middle of its detent instead of all the way at one side. So in order to do that, I have to take this guy off. So let me go get a small screwdriver to do that. Okay, so there's a little hole on the side here. You stick your screwdriver. Oh, it's not even close. move this over one position. So yeah, stick our screwdriver in the side here, and it still doesn't reach. See if it'll reach now. There we go. So we stick our screwdriver in the side here, and get in this screw right here. Take that out. And then this will come out. And now the carriage can move all the way over. And what we want to do is, so see, this is, well, it's not gonna, so basically it's completely free. I'm not sure if you can see back here, those are the teeth that, those teeth are attached to the shaft. See, they're moving. And then there's a set of teeth on the back of the carriage, and the carriage drives the gear, and that gear drives these teeth. So they're connected together. And now, the carriage is free from those teeth, so see if I move the carriage, that doesn't move at all. I'm just going to fall off the end if I'm not careful. That's what I'm doing. So, we want to put the carriage, I think, right about there, and then engage these. That might be correct. If I put this back on, let's see. So this is important because this has to drive these gears at the right time. That could be correct. So I'm looking at is this pin is going to swing around and drive this gear back here. I'm not sure if you can see it down there. So it has to line up with that. And this is what connects these two together. So if I put this on there, and put it on the shaft, that is not correct. Yeah, that's not going to work. This has to go over that way a little bit. So I'll take it back off, slide the carriage back out, so it's free, and then try right here. See if that made any sort of difference. Okay, how does that look? That's even worse. Alright, I'm going to have to play with this for a while, but you get the idea. When the carriage is... Oh, it just moved. When the carriage is locked... Oh, that's a little bit better. When the carriage is locked, you want this tooth to be lined up with that gear. It's very close. That might actually work. Let me tighten that down and see how it looks. Okay, it seems to be working. See, watch this number here. See, it changes one position each time, so that means that that tooth is driving correctly. So, that's one part of the timing. I think I mentioned the other part was that tooth driving at the appropriate time, which is set with this side off. You have to mesh the gear on the end of that shaft with the gear on the side and the gear on the counter helix drum to make sure those mesh appropriately so that this increments at the right time. And I think that's about it for the timing stuff. Looks like everything else is just going to be putting covers and the motor back on. Oh, there is one more thing. This still jams sometimes when it's not in, when it is in repeat mode. So what you can do, there's two ways to operate this machine. You can have it set with this latch down. This is a button that says add on it usually. With this latch down, every time you do something, it stops after that cycle. And it clears the keyboard. With this latched up, you're supposed to be able to go indefinitely. So if I hold this if I hold this down and keep going, see it jams. It's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to let me keep going indefinitely. And the problem with that is still related to that multiplier bar being too low. It needs to be raised up just a little tiny bit in order for it to work properly. What I tried doing was, this is attached to that bar. I tried shoving a little bit of stuff in there to try and give this a little, try and hold this back a little bit farther to like kind of make the detent back farther. Oh, you know what? I wonder if I can just loosen this up and slide that just a little tiny bit. That is probably how you're supposed to adjust it. Let me do that. Okay, it's loosening up this nut, and I slid this just a little teeny tiny here backwards. And now if I hold down plus, I can go indefinitely without jamming until I release plus. And as for these, I'm using this because it's hard to push on these little sharp things. This is just the foot. I have to put that back on. If I push down 2, it latches down, and I should go for 2. 1, 2. And it does. So, I think this is pretty much done as far as working. I had to put the motor on the back, obviously, but I mean the actual like calculating mechanism seems to be working. I hope I haven't missed anything. I did redo some work on this switch. I'm going to delete that old wire that was underneath the calculator because it's just falling apart. And I discovered that it's pretty easy to wire the plug. So we'll do that. I have to rethread that because the threads got messed up. Just a little knob goes there for you to move the carriage back and forth. And put the motor back on the back. And then I think it's just cosmetics. The covers, the keys, the feet have to go back on. I don't think I mentioned this, but it's not going to be easy to hold. Yeah, okay. That's where the foot goes, and I had to take the foot off because that screw holds the side on. And there's another one of those in the back of the machine as well. So that's why both those feet came off. This thing here is for subtraction. When you push the subtraction button, this is going to swing like this, and that's going to change that transmission gear from forward to reverse. Because the motor always spins the same direction, just has a little transmission gear here that slides back and forth to determine the direction the machine moves. So I'm going to finish buttoning this mess back up, and that should be good for the switch, hopefully. I have to reinstall this rod. This runs up through here somewhere. Hope I can get it in there now. And that is what, there's a little lever that goes on the front that you can just push to move the carriage one position either way, instead of having to unlock and then move it yourself. So this has to go back in, and that gets a bracket that goes on it. And other than that, I think this is just about working. Oh, and explanation. An explanation for what happened here. It looks like at some point the carriage, something on the carriage grabbed on there and just took a bite out of it. Not quite sure how that happened, but so it doesn't have a 5 or a 6 in that column. I'll have to see if I can make something up for that. You just put a little piece of black paper or something with 5 and 6 on it. We'll see. That's just cosmetics. Right now we're concerned with getting this to run fully and correctly, and then we'll see about that. This is a clear button. That works.